Alright. Alright. So your little power of friendship moment got the better of me. Whoop-de-frickin-do. But hey, I'm a nice guy. So I'm gonna give you a chance to prove how strong your little buddy-buddy act is by triggering my self-destruct sequence, you little pests!
Okay, if anyone has any bright ideas, now might be a good time to bust them out.
Wait, I've got a song that's perfect for this. I just need a minute to play it out.
Great. DoomZ tech takes ages to prime, so we should have
Which means in 30 seconds, all of you are gonna be reduced to ash!
We're gonna have to go double time on that song.
Double time? You can't just rush art like this. Teleportation is very delicate and very precise discipline. One note off key, one bar out of place, one chord off beat. We could wind up in the middle of the ocean, or hundreds of feet in the air. Do you have any idea how much work goes into crafting one of these spells? We can't just buy a bunch of fireworks from our evil cousins to fire off all willy-nilly. Some of us actually really need to think about our art.
What do you think I do with them at performance? Pat them on the head and tell them to do their...
Wait, where'd y'all go?
Oh, great. Look what you made me do.
Yeah, I helped you finish the spell. You're welcome. And hey, looks like the cost not being flash fried is just being lightly seasoned by the local herbs and spices.
Oh, you're right. We've ended up somewhere even worse.
Okay, you're overreacting.
Actually, you're underreacting. This is Oratorio. Gardens. My home village.
Well, that doesn't sound so bad.
Oh, I suppose you think you're the only one with family issues?
Oh, that's bad. What kind of tech are they outfitted with? Have they weaponized the forest for military deployment or something?
Way worse. Way worse. They're color coordinated. Oh, hell. They found us already.
Your real name is Regina?
Shut up. Hide me.
Hide you? I stick out like a sore thumb. You should hide me.
If they find you, they'll treat you like a curiosity and roll out the red carpet. If they find me, they're going to stuff me in one of those gaudy dresses and have me rehearsing operas, even though they know damn well I'm better with a 6-string than my vocal cords.
Well, I mean, your vocal work could use some polish. You can carry the mandolin around, but you sure can't carry a note.
And your symmetry could use some polish. What, do they not sell enough epoxy to glue your other horn on?
Hey, that's a traumatic moment from my backstory. You can't just throw it around as a joke like that.
Medius, for your hatred shall turn to soup. Medius pure. Medius the herald. Medius the vessel. Medius the finale.
Before we get into the elf notes, let's cover all the new cards for the other archetypes in the Medius lore, though notably, we will only be covering the cards that came out alongside the elf notes in Burst Protocol, and that same idea will apply to the actual elf note cards in this video. I do have a structure to keep for all these lore videos after all. First up is a card for Medius, Theorealize Liberation, a quick play spell card that you can activate if you control Medius the Pure. It adds to your hand or special summons a monster with 300 attack and 200 defense, and during your main phase, you can banish this card from your grave, then target a face-up monster that you control, and it's treated as a tuner this turn. This graveyard effect is meant to synergize with the elf notes we'll be talking about later, as they're a synchro-focused theme. And because it doesn't apply any locks or restrictions when you use it, you can include this in any number of synchro builds. The fun part is the cards you're able to summon off of Liberation. 300 attack and 200 defense is a sly way of including all of the power patrons, letting you access the gateways to Artmage, DoomZ, and Elfnote. So if you're looking to make a combined version of the decks run more smoothly, or you want to amp up a more focused version, this is the card for you. But there's a secret extra mode you can tap into. See, the 300 attack, 200 defense stat line didn't originate with power patrons, but can also be seen across two other archetypes, Kuriboh and Skull Servants. Yeah, with Medius on the board, you can activate this to put detonating Kuriboh onto the board at quick speed, giving yourself some interaction. Or you can grab White Baking, link it and Medius off, then use White Baking to fill your hand with Skull Servant cards while bidding White Prince to fill your grave up even more. True, it's meant to work a lot better with the established archetypes of the lore, but when you free yourself of such constraints, well, it's actually quite liberating. Next up, let's check out Artmages with Artmage Non Finito, a level 7 Earth Illusion fusion monster with 2400 attack and 1500 defense, requiring 2 Artmage monsters as material, and must either be fusion summoned or special summoned from your extra deck by discarding a spell or trap card and tributing a level 7 or higher Artmage monster from your hand or field. Very Dark Magician of Destruction of them. And you can only special summon this card once per turn, this way, no matter which method you use. And if this card is special summoned, you can set an Artmage spell or trap card from your deck. Also, once per opponent's turn as a quick effect, you can fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters you control as material. This monster is an interesting idea. Of the Artmage monsters, only 2 of them are level 7 or higher, one being Finmel, whom you can see in the art, and Artmage Diactorus, one of the theme's other fusion monsters. And you don't really want to trade that one away for what amounts to a tutor. Now, getting Finmel into rotation isn't that hard. Artmage Movement Pedigree can summon it from the deck. Artmage Academic Arcane Arts Acropolis can also pull them out of your deck if you can discard a spell or trap card. And between Terraforming and Artmage Varnish, you've got 4 ways to put that card onto the field, not to mention Artmage Power Patron turns into a tutor for any of the on-theme spell or trap cards once it goes from your hand or field to the grave. Then, if you have another spell or trap card in hand to pitch, you can translate Finmel into Non Finito, getting you any other Artmage spell or trap card into rotation. And because this triggers on any kind of special summon, once you get it into rotation properly, you can keep bringing it back with cards like Lutera to keep getting you free support cards. Not to mention, the fusion summoning effect is nice, giving you more ways to get into Diactorus, Nerva, or really any fusion monster, as the only restriction on this is that you have to use material that you control, which sadly means you won't be bridging into Draco Tail that easily. Non Finito is a fine addition to the theme, giving you more options to help realize your game plan, which is good because if you do run out of options during a game, then things really are finito. Our last new addition is for our Mecha Menaces. DoomZ Change is a normal spell card that destroys a DoomZ card in your hand, deck, or face-up field except a copy of itself, and if this card is destroyed by a card effect, you can add a DoomZ card from your grave to your hand except a copy of itself. Then, you can special summon a DoomZ monster from your hand. Wow, talk about a wild enabler. Pretty much all the DoomZ cards get a benefit when destroyed by a card effect, which already worked well enough with their on-board cardboard crushers. The one thing limiting them was that they only destroyed the cards you'd already pulled out of the deck. But with Change, you don't even have to wait for that. Just blast your cards right out of your deck for a variety of effects. Hit the theme's own Power Patron to tutor up any DoomZ card from your deck, or crack either a Moth or a Lara, who search a more limited range of DoomZ cards, but have the benefit of putting a level 4 monster in your graveyard. Or you can blast your spell or trap cards. Hit Destruction out of your deck to equip a DoomZ monster to any monster on the field, which can help load up Drastrias for a big level up into Jupiter, or hit Raiders to give you some removal. And if you can manage to pop this card, then you get a sweet bit of recovery while filling up your board. This is a stupendous card from front to back, effectively acting as the theme's own Foolish Burial, and double as a great lesson. When your annoying little spirit companion has something to tell you, you listen! Alright, that covers the support for existing themes. Let's talk about the new stuff. What's the deal with Elfnotes? Well, they're a series of level 6 spellcaster type monsters with 1800 defense that are a group of forest-dwelling divas, and we know they love being the talk of the town because many of their effects center on the center main monster zone. All of the main deck ones can be special summoned from your hand to the center main monster zone, so despite their high level, they're pretty easy to deploy, but not all at once, since you only have one center main monster zone. But just because they all have main character syndrome doesn't mean they don't know how to work together, because they also have a quick effect that you can use during your opponent's turn to swap itself with the monster in your center main monster zone, while applying some other effect, which I will refer to as their taking the spotlight effect, since this ends up putting them into the center main monster zone and saves me a lot of syllables. They also come with an ignition effect that you can use during your main phase to grab an on-theme card from your deck, which ends up boiling their whole deal down pretty succinctly. So much so that we can actually just talk about them all at once. Elfnote Lucina is a fire monster with 2500 attack that, during your main phase, lets you add an Elfnote monster from your deck to your hand except a copy of itself, and it's taking the Spotlight effect returns a level 6 or lower monster your opponent controls to the hand. This can be a little rough, because while you get to grab a new Elfnote, you can't summon any of your level 6 ones immediately if you took up the center zone to bring out Lucina, which means we'll have to use our Power Patron, a card we'll be discussing later. Though notably, normal summoning it does get you into a level 7 synchro, which has a host of benefits. Also, the Spotlight effect is pretty good here. Now, it's not great, you do miss out on a lot of options because there's 2 whole classes of monsters that don't even have levels, and powerful ones tend to be level 7 or higher. But the effect itself does not target, and getting Lucina into the spotlight sets up the others to use their own effects. Elfnote Tinia is a water monster with 2400 attack, and during your main phase, you can place an Elfnote continuous spell card from your deck face up on your field. And its Take the Spotlight effect lets you banish a random card from your opponent's hand face up until the end phase. Probably the weakest of the effects during general gameplay, though can be devastating as your opponent's hand shrinks. If they get down to top decking, little is stopping you from responding to their draw, taking their last vestige of hope and plucking it from their hand, dismissing that possibility for a whole turn. And, I mean, it does combo with Lucina putting a monster back into your opponent's hand. Kinda. But that ability being lackluster is more than made up for by their ability to field your continuous spells, as one of them does an even better job of deploying your Elfnotes than Lucina does, making this a must-have card for your opening plays. That just leaves us with Elfnote Fortuna, a light monster with 2200 attack that, during your main phase, lets you place an Elfnote continuous trap card from your hand or deck face up on your field. And its Taking the Spotlight effect lets you return a face up spell or trap card on the field to the hand. This lets you get rid of an opponent's annoying floodgate or powerful field spell, or allows you to recycle your own cards. If they have strong on-field effects, it's worth snapping them back up into your own hand to activate later. And our continuous traps are also very helpful, with a standard effect being the ability to move a monster from one main monster zone to another, letting you get Elfnotes out of the main monster zone without switching, so you can make room to summon more of them out of your hand. Together, these three make for a solid trio with some fun effects, but a lot of their power is going to be centered in the spell and trap cards they can bring to bear. But no matter what, you can always count on them being the center of attention. But like all of our themes so far, we've got a power patron that steers the wheel, and that's going to be Elfnote Power Patron, a level 1 Fire Fiend tuner monster with 300 attack and 200 defense. And while on the field, you can't special summon from the extra deck except synchro monsters. During the main phase, as a quick effect, you can target a monster in your center main monster zone, increase its level by 3 until the end of this turn, then immediately after this effect resolves, you can synchro summon an Elfnote synchro monster or Junora, the power patron of tuning. And if this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can add an Elfnote card from your deck to your hand. Of the 3 level 1 power patrons that we have, this is by far the jankiest. The Artmage one is a fine quick fusion effect, letting you use materials from your hand or field to accomplish its summon, while the DoomZ one took your level 4 and 8 monsters and turned them into very powerful Xyz. The Elfnote one, on the other hand, is just full of hurdles you have to jump over. For starters, it needs to target a monster in your center main monster zone, so if your placement is wrong, this does absolutely nothing. And you have to increase the monster's level by 3, you don't get to opt out. And no, it can't be up to 3, it's very rigid in that regard. This can be helpful in a setup that makes Junora, but doesn't have a lot of upsides aside from the tutor aspect, which thankfully triggers when used for any synchro monster, so you can dip into your pool to get a little silly if you want. I'm sure Medius will be able to get all kinds of cool level 5 synchros to work with them, which is all the better to go around peacocking with. And if you've got tuners, synchros aren't far behind. Elfnote Seraphim Strelitzia is a level 7 fire plant monster with question mark attack and 3000 defense, requiring generic materials. Its original attack becomes 3000 while in the center main monster zone, and during the main phase, as a quick effect, you can special summon a level 6 or lower Elfnote monster from your hand or grave. Then, you can reduce the level of all level 4 or higher monsters on the field by 3 until the end of this turn. Also, you can't special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, except synchro monsters. This may seem a bit out of place, what with the plant typing and the general no-elfness of the monsters, but that's because this is an emissary of the forest, the great Earl King the Elfnotes pray to, and is who our team goes to help in remedying the current Big Coma Medius situation. Oh yeah, and Medius ended up in a coma after the teleport. We'll get to all that story stuff later on. As for the mechanics, we get a free Elfnote from our grave every turn, with the option of turning this into a battle juggernaut if it's in the spotlight. The weirdness comes in when you have to deal with the level manipulation. This does hit your own monsters, and because they're mostly huge, this can be helpful in accessing your run-of-the-mill synchro monsters. The big application is when you try to go for your big boss. See, the next one we'll be talking about is a level 10 synchro, and needs at least 3 material. So the idea is that you use Strelitzia's revival during your opponent's turn to assemble a field of 2 level 6 Elfnotes and the Power Patron. Reduce the level of the 6s down to 3, then quick sync with your Power Patron. This will restore the level of the Elfnote in your center monster zone, and just like that, you've got 6, 3, and 1. That makes 10. It's a long and convoluted line, but the payoff is kinda sick. I feel like I should enjoy this card more, but sadly anything Strelitzia related has been ruined by residual Darling in the Franxx disappointment. Sorry Trigger, but you can't get it right all the time. Junora, the Power Patron of Tuning, is a level 10 Fire Fiend monster with 3100 attack and 3800 defense, requiring a tuner and 2 non-tuners as material. No more and no less. For this card, Synchro Summon, you can treat a monster in the center monster zone as a tuner, potentially letting you access this card in a number of decks beyond Elfnotes. Heck, even beyond traditional Synchro decks. Which is wild, because if this card is Synchro Summoned, you can negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls. That's monsters and back row, which is kind of unreal. And as a quick effect, you can activate this effect to make it so monsters your opponent controls in the same column as Elfnote monsters you control can't be used as material for a fusion, synchro, xyz, or link summon until the end of the turn. That effect smells of S-Force, so I'm just gonna ignore that one. The core of the card is that giant board suppressor, and because Elfnote Power Patron can quick sync, you can drop this in the middle of a setup to ruin your opponent's day. And this is the point where I realized that Junora is meant to be Juno to go along with Jupiter, and Nerva is short for Minerva, so we're doing a little Roman Pantheon action this time around. Now, personally, I'm a Hades guy, I love the game, but if you have to introduce Pluto at some point, I'll understand. Alright, that does it for the monsters. Now it's time for the spells and traps. Elfnote, a plea for help, is a continuous spell card that prevents your opponent from targeting monsters in your center main monster zone with card effects. It also gains certain effects depending on the attributes of the monster in your center main monster zone. If it's fire or earth, your synchro monsters can deal piercing battle damage. With wind or water, your other face-up spell and trap cards can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. And with light or dark, you take no battle damage. Now, if your monster has multiple attributes that span the different pairings, you can get multiple of these effects at once, but generally, you're only going to have one. And considering our big synchro is fire attribute, we're not going to be letting our opponent hide behind their defenses. But the cool thing is, because we can swap our monsters in and out of the spotlight, if your back row is being threatened, you can bring Tinia to the stage to keep them safe. All of which is compounded by the fact that, if you want to prevent Veilers and Imperms from bringing you down, this gives you a safe space to avoid all that, no matter what attribute you have lined up. Honestly, I'm just glad this establishment has a no messing with the performers in the middle of an act clause. As a theater kid, I approve. Elfnote's Welcome Home is a continuous spell card that prevents the monster in your center main monster zone from being destroyed by card effects. It can also send a monster from your hand or field to the grave to special summon an Elfnote monster with a different original attribute from your deck in defense position. Also, you can't special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, except synchro monsters. This is going to be one of our primary starters and is the reason Tinia is so good. Trading a monster for a monster is a great way to get things going, even if you'll sometimes find the different attribute restrictions to cause a stumble. It's even got the ability to send monsters from your field, letting you clear out your center main monster zone to bring out more Elfnotes. And the protect effect ain't too bad either. It's safe, and it'll get you where you're going next. There's no place like home. Elfnote's Aristia of Truth is a continuous trap card that, once per turn, lets you target a face-up monster you control and move that monster you control to another of your main monster zones. When your opponent activates a spell or trap card while you control 3 or more Elfnote monsters, you can negate that effect. Then if you control a synchro monster, you can destroy that card, but you can't activate those 2 effects on the same chain. Which kind of baffles me. Normally that restriction is set in place to keep the two effects from clashing with each other, because they would cause some wacky shenanigans if they were allowed to work at the same time. Crystal Conclave is my go-to example for this. After all, if you send it to the graveyard for its second effect, you'll end up whiffing on the first one. But here, it just makes a weird dead zone where the card can't protect itself in the middle of moving a monster. As far as impact goes, this card is necessary, but also it's just fine. Being able to move a monster means you have another way to clear out that center main monster zone, thank you Fortuna for getting that into rotation, and a free spell or trap negate once you've flooded the board is useful, but it does kind of end up as one of those machines with too many moving parts that throwing a single wrench into it can cause the whole thing to sputter out. But massive props on the art for containing one of the best visual puns I've seen in this game ever. Like, yeah, it looks cool, that's fine, but you've got the singers belting out that song and feeding their lyrics to the black hole sun in the background, in the middle of Oratorio Garden. The Sound Garden! I love this game. Elfnote's Rhapsodia of Madness is a continuous trap card that makes it so your opponent can't target monsters for attacks except the one in your center main monster zone while you have a monster there. It can also send a monster from your hand or field to the graveyard, then targets an Elfnote monster in your graveyard with a different original attribute and special summons it. Then, if you control a synchro monster, you can negate the effects of a face-up card your opponent controls until the end phase. So this one's pretty rad. It's like a welcome home that grabs from the graveyard so you can recycle all your goodies, and has a much bigger upside for controlling that synchro monster. Being a quick negate lets you interrupt anything that hits the field, from the humble monster to the towering spell card. And you've seen how big our synchros can get. Your opponent's gonna have a hard time breaking your board if they can't run over those monstrosities. It very much opposes the art in that way, because Rhapsodia is a card that's gonna keep you from being chained down. Alright, so that's all the Elfnote cards. But what do we do with them? Well, we've got a bit of a weird situation here. The deck itself gives you the option to make a bunch of synchros, but the core monsters are invested in staying on the field to utilize their center stage effects. This makes Strelitzia supremely important to go into so we can keep reborning our Elfnotes, which is easy enough to do, but once we've established that, we can't fill the board with too many more synchros or else we'll run out of room for the talent. So we'll actually want to try and support them with cards that amp up spellcasters and high-level monsters with a splash of synchro flavor in there to give us some fun options. So what can we play to help them out? Getting our Elfnotes out of the hand is one of our biggest hurdles, so ways to get them onto the field easily is going to be a great help. Legion the Fiend Jester is kind of fun. It grants you an additional tribute summon of a spellcaster monster, so you can normal summon this, then tribute it immediately for an Elfnote. And then you get to search a normal spellcaster for your trouble. There are even a couple of tuners for synchro summoning. Lunar Rabbit Omaginai is a pretty recent one, and as a level 1 pairs with our Elfnotes to make level 7s. And Magica Libra's level 4 means we have easy access to level 10s. At least ones that can use a minimum of 2 material, which was gonna be a little complicated until new reveals happen, but like I said, let's wait for a future video to cover that stuff. Another way we can just get those Elfnotes out of our hand and onto the field is by just bypassing tributing altogether with Mausoleum of the Emperor. We don't have a field spell for the theme yet, so we don't have to worry about it clashing with anything. And now you can just drop 1,000 life points to put an Elfnote that doesn't have to be in center stage onto the field. A third option is, if you have a ton of spellcasters just lying around, you could link into Crowley the First Prophecyr. This gives you a free summon of an Elfnote once per turn, no tribute or life point cost required, and gives you an excuse to tap into the wealth of spellbook cards the game has to offer. Hard to pass up a few extra draws when Spellbook of Knowledge is potentially in your future. If we want to stock up on cards in the graveyard, Magician's Souls is once again here to cause some combo chaos. By sending any of our big Elfnote monsters to the grave, you can summon this out for free, then you can trade any of our spare spell and trap cards for some fresh draws to turbocharge our plays. And it potentially gets even better. As a level 1 monster, you can tune this with Elfnote Power Patron to make Formula Synchron, which not only gets you that search, but also Formula's Draw. Then, you can pair it with any Elfnote to make a level 8 Synchro monster, of which we have a metric truckload of good options. Or, play another good level 2 non-tuner and you can make Junora without having to go through Elfnote Power Patron's specific line of play. You even get to keep the surprise field negate, isn't that nice? As for a silly tech pick, one of the unfortunate things about Elfnote is how often they get locked into synchro summoning. Xyz monsters can be pretty powerful as they rise up the ranks, and rank 6 has more than a few hidden gems in it. So do we have any that would be good to use when we don't have a lock on ourselves? Well, I'd love to recommend Magi Magician Gal, but that's likely never coming to the TCG. But as far as rank 6s we have unique access to, it's hard to overlook anytime we can play Norito, the Moral Leader. This gives us more spell and trap negates that aren't tied to Aristy of Trust, which requires us to have a critical mass of Elfnote stocked up on the field to make it work. As of Burst Protocol, that is the mechanics of all the cards. Now it's time to dig into the lore. Thankfully, with the help of another V-Jump article, we've got a pretty good idea as to what's going on. After defeating Drastrius, who had launched a massive attack on the Artmage Academy, he decided to take the Sore Loser's approach and self-destruct. Thankfully, Drastrius has that once per turn protection against destruction, so I'm sure he'll be fine. But the rest of the party isn't so blessed. Lutera strings together a spell that teleports everyone away from the battlefield, including herself, Finmel, Graflare, Medius, and even the Power Patron. Both of the Power Patrons. When the spell concluded, they arrived at Oratorio Gardens, home of the Elfnotes. That's right, Graflare isn't the only one that has ties to another faction. Lutera is one of the sonorous spellcasters herself. But just as they touch down, the DoomZ Power Patron begins to commune with Medius. And this goes very poorly. Having already channeled the power of the Artmage Power Patron, this second connection causes his powers to go ballistic, putting him into a comatose state. None of the gang have an immediate solution to this, but Lutera has an idea. The Elfnotes pray to a being known as the Great Earl King, and it might have the power to wake Medius. After some heated discussion, the Elfnotes agreed to perform a ritual to cleanse Medius of his affliction. But an entity was watching in wait that ensured the ritual would not end in success. Our third Power Patron enters the scene, the Elfnote Power Patron, aligned with Junora, and they immediately set their schemes into motion. By infesting the Earl King, they were able to corrupt it, ending the ritual. And not satisfied with that, it absorbed Lucina, one of the principal spellcasters in the ritual, and through this union became the Elfnote Seraphim Strelitzia. Mad with power, this new ungodly creature set fire to the gardens, threatening to destroy the entire region and everyone inside. Leaping into action, Finmel beseeches the Artmage Power Patron for help. With Medius still unconscious, she was the only one capable of wielding its power, which we know thanks to the original run of cards in Artmage Masterwork Succession. While not as powerful as Medius's connection, the newly formed Artmage Non-Finito leaps into action, looking to stop the newly ascended Seraphim's rampage. It's worth noting that Non-Finito is a term that actually exists and is used in the sculpting sphere. It literally means not finished, but its actual usage can mean a lot of different things depending on the context. Someone might comment on a sculpture's lack of polish and call it non-finito, while someone else might deliberately carve something in a less refined manner and then call that non-finito as maybe a joke or a way to claim a particular kind of style. From what I was reading, it also has a kind of cool philosophical angle to it, stemming from Plato. He once said that no work can ever reflect its true heavenly counterpart, the most perfect version of that work. So in essence, everything is kind of non-finito. So the idea of embracing that perfection is impossible and to be happy with the work that you've made is kind of moving. Whether you end your combo line with a decently sized fusion and a search, or they're just the next rung in your fusion ladder, incomplete is still a strong ally. Because unlike perfection, the incomplete is real. Incomplete is human. And that is all the story we get out of Burst Protocol. It is true that we've got a bit more story coming up in the next set, but we've got to save that story, as well as the remaining Elfnote cards, for our coverage of Blazing Dominion lore, where we can find out the next step in Junora's plan, the devastation left in their wake, and the new powers our protagonists will seize to oppose them. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell, because our next chapter is right around the corner. Today's episode is brought to you by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout while helping out the channel. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, Upstairs Media, and the Critic of Innocence, Nebula Navigators, 3rd Dynasty, Adam Zajdel, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Avi Chali, Battle Axe, Beastsman, Charlie Mercury, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Eric, Frankie, Great Big Pillock, Groog, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Ignavius, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Japan Man, Carp, Marion James E. Picata, Meme King, Muse Clark, Neon Yaminair, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Pat Poos, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, That One Dumbass and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders, Animasta, Entharak, Anything You Can Say, Blitzwolf, Chaz Ghost, Christopher Fuss, again, Cool Trainer Dark, Da Tenchi 67, Dr. Entity RIP, Drachenwald, Eki Bullock, Eva Padilla, Herbal D, Inblink, J.A. Flair, Julian Marquis, Kale the Dragon, Kryptonian Blurred, Lobomaru 02, Manga Pages, Millennia Asta, Mr. Machina, Natiel Lee Alexander, Not Al Gore, Obsidian, Rhyme Kairos, Rogue Wolf, Seraph SG, Shizuka Nijimura, Simic Toadstool, Sonic 21 Blast, Stepfin Huntsman, The Legendary Raven, The Queen of Time, Tiger X2476, Tristan O'Meara, Zayden, Zaldreka, and Zentha, as well as all the lovely Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you would check out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you'd like to see where this story began, check out this video where we cover Medius and the Artmage Academy. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.